Welcome to this month's basic training video. In this video, we'll be reviewing heavy rail and the initial actions for heavy rail incidents. Some points we'll discuss are going to include a history of past rail incidents, information on the tracks operated within Montgomery County, Maryland. We'll have a review of locomotive and rail car systems. We'll highlight information in the IRP, the Incident Response Policy, Appendix L, initial actions for heavy rail incidents. We'll talk about lookouts, flagging, and some of the challenges these duties have for our personnel. Sit back, relax, and let's get this train moving. Railroad incidents present unusual situations that are not found during typical or routine fire and rescue incidents. Moving trains, high voltage electricity, and the possibility of hazardous materials in large quantities create an extremely hazardous work environment within the railroad roadway. A train collision, a derailment, or a fire may immediately create a mass casualty event when involving a passenger train, or a significant hazardous materials event when involving a freight train. A history of past heavy rail incidents. Now for some background. Montgomery County has experienced numerous minor incidents and several serious incidents involving heavy rail. Most of the heavy rail incidents we run in Montgomery County are minor in the scope of things. Minor incidents include people and vehicles being struck by trains, and brush fires caused by passing trains. Here are a couple of the major incidents. February 16th, 1996. A MARC and an Amtrak train collide in the area of 16th Street in Silver Spring, Maryland, killing 11 and injuring 26 people. July 29th, 2002. A double-decker Amtrak train derails, landing on its side, injuring 108 people, 29 of which were injured seriously. Some heavy rail incidents may not start off as heavy rail dispatched incidents. However, they may evolve to one without anyone even knowing it. Let's take a personal injury collision at the intersection of Oakbon Avenue and Railroad Street in Gaithersburg. Or let's look at Linden Lane and Forest Glen Road in Silver Spring. These could potentially become heavy rail incidents. With the proximity of the CSX roadway, you could easily be operating within 30 feet of the roadway as your incident expands. Let's think of operating on a brush fire to the rear of the 19300 block of Circle Gate Drive. You could find yourself operating within 30 feet of the roadway. Because of this, you potentially have a heavy rail incident. Even though these are minor incidents and something we run daily, they can quickly turn into a much larger incident that requires notifications to CSX and additional resources to handle the train lookout's responsibilities. If you or your apparatus are operating within 30 feet of the roadway, CSX must be notified. If you have a need to operate in the roadway, train lookouts must be in place prior to entering the roadway. This is a requirement, and it must be communicated. Most incidents involving heavy rail are minor in nature and do not affect those on the train. Sometimes individuals on the train aren't even aware that an incident has even occurred. For example, if a train hits a pedestrian or a car, it may not be recognized by the passengers on the train. Keeping passengers on the train in a safe and comfortable environment with little to no fire rescue interaction may be the best for everyone. The conductor can assist you with finding out if anyone is injured or gathering general information on the passengers on the train. A description of the heavy rail line in Montgomery County. The heavy rail line located within Montgomery County stretches from Silver Spring to Dickerson and covers over 25 miles of tracks. Some sections of the line are very remote and difficult to access. The dispatch location may not be the best access point in every case. Some of these locations may only be accessible by foot, with no vehicle access. Large sections of the heavy rail line share a common corridor with the Metro Rail roadway in Silver Spring and Rockville. During these incidents, you must make notification to both CSX and Metro Rail. In addition to the Metro Rail, the new Purple Line is being built and will run next to the CSX line in Silver Spring. The Purple Line will bring another aspect of situational awareness to any incident that occurs near or along the roadway of any of these rail lines. The heavy rail line, located within Montgomery County, is owned and operated by the CSX Corporation, who have designated this line as their metropolitan subdivision. In addition to CSX freight service, both MARC and Amtrak utilize the CSX rail line to provide commuter rail service. MARC refers to this rail line as their Brunswick line. Amtrak utilizes the rail line to operate their Capital Limited train service. All train movement located within Montgomery County is controlled by CSX. The CSX Operations Center is in Jacksonville, Florida, and handles rail operations for approximately 21,000 route miles of track. CSX Operations doesn't really know where Rockville or Gaithersburg is located. Therefore, CSX uses location markers, called mileposts, to determine any given location along their rail line, much like a metro chain marker. However, the difference is these mileposts are spaced at 1 mile intervals and indicate the distance from the beginning of the line at Union Station for their metropolitan subdivision. Mileposts are critical when identifying the location of your incident, and they are required to request a stoppage of train movement in the area. All mileposts within Montgomery County are preceded by the letters BA, which is the CSX milepost designation for the metropolitan subdivision. Some mileposts may be damaged or unreadable. So why not consider using ECC to layer the mileposts on top of your incident location? They've already created a quick reference card with the help of the rail team. It makes it really easy. A description of the locomotives and the rail cars in the heavy rail system. All heavy rail trains operating within Montgomery County use diesel-electric locomotives. The diesel engine powers a large generator that produces high voltage to supply electric traction motors. The average diesel fuel tank is about 5,000 gallons, with a combined unit weight of over 100 tons. Locomotives used with passenger service generate 480 volts through the train to run electrical components of the passenger cars. This includes heating, air conditioning, lighting, and other auxiliary power needs. All diesel-electric locomotives are equipped with emergency fuel shutoffs. These fuel shutoffs are located on the exterior, one on each side, at approximately midpoint of the locomotive. These two shutoffs, or trips, are located on each side of the locomotive, usually placed directly above the fuel tanks. They're buttons located within a well-marked depression to guard against accidental activation. Shutting off the fuel to the diesel motor stalls the engine, which in turn stops the electrical power to the cars. When fuel shutoffs are activated, they may take anywhere from several seconds to a minute to shut down the locomotive as the engines starve for fuel. Press and hold the emergency shutoff for about 10 seconds, or until the motor stops running, to activate the emergency fuel shutoff. The emergency fuel shutoff button kills both head-end power and locomotive power. The term head-end power is the power generated for the passenger cars, lights, air conditioning, and ventilation. Locomotive power is needed for the air brake system. Before you push this button, consider the effect this action will have on the passengers who may still be aboard the entire length of the train. Brakes on all train cars rely on air pressure. Air pressure at about 90 psi is produced by locomotive power. In the case of an emergency incident, handbrakes should be utilized to confirm brakes are set. Handbrakes are located on locomotives and on individual train cars. Passenger and freight rail cars don't really have a front and a rear end. Instead, the ends are considered A or B based on where the handbrake is located. The end of the car with the handbrake is the B end. The other end of the car is the A end. The Department of Transportation requires that every freight train has a document that describes the prearranged order and contents of each car in a train, starting at the locomotive and continuing to the end of the train. This document is officially identified as the train consist, or it's sometimes called the shipping papers. These are usually kept in the locomotive with the conductor. Amtrak is the only commuter rail service that accounts for the number of passengers and crew through an electronic ticketing system. This system provides a real-time manifest that is available from the conductor or Amtrak Control Center. MARC, much like Metro, does not track the number of passengers on their trains at any given time. All trains, regardless of type, are staffed with both an engineer and a conductor. The engineer is responsible for operating the locomotive. The conductor is responsible for the consist. Remember those shipping papers, the freight, and or the passengers. Commuter trains will also be staffed with additional personnel to support their passengers. During any incident involving a train, it is critical that personnel locate the train conductor. Generally, the conductor will initially be located inside the locomotive on freight trains, and inside one of the passenger cars on passenger trains. It is important to note that unless it's unsafe to do so, federal law requires the train engineer to remain inside the locomotive at all times, even during an emergency incident. Initial actions for heavy rail incidents. Although every incident will be unique, there are 4 standard objectives for all heavy rail incidents. Personnel must consider the following objectives as a starting point and adjust as necessary to the situation and overall incident strategy. The 4 standard objectives are based on the Acre mnemonic. Assess. Develop situational awareness while en route to locate the incident and determine the best access points for other responding units. Consider leveraging the newly deployed Zello phones to request the ECC to send the latest Rapid SOS data for wireless callers. In many cases, this data can provide a caller's geolocation to within 30 feet. This is a great help when deciding on best access options. Control. Begin to control the emergency by establishing scene safety, and continue to develop situational awareness by determining the presence of any hazmat involvement and the status of the crew and any passengers. Rescue. Begin the process of disentanglement and or extrication. Evacuate. Remove the victims to a predetermined area of safety and begin a process of triage, treatment, and transport. All operations must be directed towards clearly defined and attainable objectives. Situational awareness is critical to determining risk and establishing the incident objectives. Effective and ongoing situational awareness begins with locating, accessing, and observing the scene, locating the conductor, and determining the status of any passengers or the presence of any hazardous materials. Risk reduction begins with pre-planning and recognizing the hazards associated with the railroad environment. Moving trains pose the greatest threat to personnel operating on or near the railroad roadway. It's critical to understand that any type of train may operate on any track, in any direction, at any time. With incidents that occur in the common corridor of the CSX and Metro roadway, responders must contact Metro via the ROC along with appropriate CSX notifications. To enhance safety in the roadway, MCFRS uses a system of train lookouts strategically placed to either end of the incident to warn of an approaching train. Personnel should not operate on or adjacent to the roadway until CSX confirms that all train traffic has been stopped and our lookouts are in place. To enhance safety within the roadway, personnel should continue to anticipate train movement for at least 10 minutes after the request to stop trains is made. Remember that CSX defines roadway as the area in between the railroad fences, or any area within 20 feet of the track bed. Safety. Lookout and flagging challenges. The minimum PPE for personnel operating on or adjacent to the roadway must be matched to the hazard. At a minimum, personnel must wear the following PPE: safety toe footwear, long pants, traffic safety vest, work gloves, eye protection, and a helmet. No apparatus should be positioned closer than 30 feet from the roadway at any time. Personnel must remain at least 30 feet away from the roadway until train traffic has been confirmed controlled and train lookouts are in place of the incident in both directions. With the CSX tracks running the entire length of the county and traveling through urban, suburban, and rural areas, access to lookout positions can be a challenge. To make this a bit easier, members of the rail team have created a list of predetermined locations for lookouts that span the entire county. ECC has enhanced this list, linking it to the Heavy Rail map and uses it as their Heavy Rail Quick Reference Card. These predetermined points are just recommendations to make accessing the area next to the roadway easier for lookouts. These access points are broken down into box number, milepost, access type, location of the possible incident, specific notes for access, and a location for a lookout approximately 2 miles north and 2 miles south of the incident. Initially, the first aerial operates as the lookout at both ends of the scene, while remaining 30 feet from the railroad roadway until the remote lookouts are in place. And they're approximately 2 miles in both directions, north and south of your incident. Once the lookouts are in place, they need to be prepared to begin the act of flagging. When units are dispatched as train lookouts, they must respond to the dispatch lookout location, which again is at least 2 miles from the incident scene, north and south. The apparatus is to be positioned no closer than 30 feet to the track bed. Personnel should be equipped with 3 30-minute flares and the proper minimum PPE. If conditions are such that a lit flare could cause concern, flashlights and hand signals during the day are also valid signaling means. Personnel must pause and look in both directions prior to approaching the roadway. Make sure personnel position themselves in a location that's easily visible to an oncoming train, but no closer than 30 feet from the railroad roadway. It is critical that personnel can quickly and safely clear the area in the event of an oncoming, uncontrolled train. You've spotted a train. If an oncoming train is spotted, personnel should remember to maintain a safe distance from the roadway. Lookouts versus flagger. Simply put, a lookout is an assignment, and flagging is the action. Begin your flagging by lighting a flare and waving it horizontally across your body in a slow, steady motion back and forth. Flashlights and hand signals during the day may also be used. Continue this flagging until the train engineer acknowledges the stop request with 2 short blasts of the train horn and begins to stop. If the train passes without acknowledgement or slowing down, immediately alert command via activation of the emergency button and declare a priority message of incoming train not stopping. All lookout crews must remain at their assigned lookout positions until released by command. Additional resources. Additional resources can be found in the following locations: the MCFRS IRP Appendix L, Heavy Rail, the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments Heavy Rail Manual, by contacting the rail team, or by exploring the CSX website. Now drill it home. The rail team wants to pass along a couple of easy drills for everyone to complete. At the company level, complete a review of the IRP for heavy rail incidents. Locate and visit the access points for railroad tracks in your first due. Go see the lookout positions where your stations can respond. What can you see there? And what are the concerns for safe access? In this MBT, we've highlighted a brief historical view of some of the past heavy rail incidents in Montgomery County. We've also discussed information about the railroad tracks operated by CSX, MARC, and Amtrak, and how each of these organizations has named this common set of rails something different in the Metropolitan Subdivision, the Brunswick Line, and the Capital Limited, respectively. We've touched on a brief review of locomotives and railcars, including fuel shutoffs and brakes. You now remember the importance of and where to find the consist, while discussing some policy highlights and challenges that lookout dispatches face. The MCFRS Rail Team hopes this MBT will help you with the dynamic challenges we all face in mitigating the dispatched heavy rail incident, and those that can become heavy rail incidents based on a proximity to the roadway. Reach out to any rail liaison officer at any time for assistance. Always remember, stay a safe distance from the roadway. Each one of us is empowered to be a safety officer, and it's our job to make sure everyone goes home.